Hey, what's up guys? So I've been using the PS5 for about a week now, and it's definitely been a really great experience. It's definitely been a lot of fun, but there's a couple things that I feel like could have made the launch a bit better, and also just this first week experience, a couple of improvements that I think really would have helped out. Now 4K 120 frames per second is something I was really interested in terms of next gen gaming, so I'll be talking about a couple games that currently support it, and also how to make sure that it's enabled on your PS5. I'll also be talking a little bit about the Sony X900H, which in my opinion is one of the best TVs you can pair with the PS5, so let's hop right into it. So coming from the PS4 Pro, I definitely was accustomed to 4K HDR. The main games I was playing were Rocket League, Ghost of Tsushima, Spiderman, the PS4 game, and also a little bit of No Man's Sky. In their own way, I feel like each game really took advantage of what the PS4 could do. The PS5 takes a leap even beyond that with things like ray tracing. Now, ray tracing is basically a rendering technique in which game lighting, more accurately, it represents the way lighting works in the real world, and they do this by simulating light rays. One of the launch titles that I think is a great example of this is Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now this game is a lot of fun, and it definitely takes advantage of the time of year of the game to really show what ray tracing can do. So all the wet, icy concrete has a lot of reflections, and it definitely enhances the immersion of the game. Now, like I said, this game is a ton of fun, and I really love the personality that Miles' character brings to the game. Everything from the combat to the new tricks that you can do when you're swinging through the city definitely fit his personality, and they're welcome improvements to me. And even with the game having a shorter playtime than the Spider-Man game on PS4, this is definitely taking the place as my favorite Spider-Man game to date. Now, one thing that the PS4 and PS4 Pro suffered from were the insanely large update files that would come at the very worst time. Got a quick 15 to 30 minutes to play some games? Nope, because Warzone has another huge update that's going to take the entire time. That's one of the main reasons I start playing Rocket League so much, besides it being a very fun game, is that usually the update files were quick if there was one, and I can easily hop into a couple quick matches and really maximize the amount of time I can play in a short period of time. Now, Sony has promised that with the PS5 that shouldn't be as big of an issue, especially if you keep your console in rest mode. Most of those updates should be able to happen, while you're not actually using the console or overnight or something like that. Now, I'm hopeful, but we'll see if they actually follow through and make that not so much of an issue. As far as load times, I'm sure I don't have to say anything else besides the letters GTA. Those load times were absolutely lengthy. With the PS5, that's gotten a lot better. It's definitely a very noticeable improvement. It's not instantaneous, but it's definitely something that you'll notice. Now, this is largely because of the new, faster SSD that's internal on the PS5 instead of the slower HDD that's included with the PS4 and PS4 Pro. The SSD is another pro of the PS5 to me, but it's also slightly a con, but I'll get to that later. Now, another great thing about the PS5 and the immersion that you can get with it is the DualSense controller. Anyone who's been following the PS5 all the way from the leaks and rumors all the way up to when there was an official announcement knows how much Sony was pushing the DualSense, and I was hopeful but also a little skeptical initially. I thought that if it's not implemented in exactly the right way, it can be very gimmicky and everything like that. But as soon as I had the controller in my hands and I loaded up Astro's Playroom, it definitely, all my worries were gone. There is so much that level of immersion is brought to you by using the DualSense controller. Now, Astro's Playroom is actually preloaded on every PS5, and it's a nice little platformer that really, to me, shows the most or gives a good taste of what the DualSense is capable of. It's kind of hard to explain, but when you're walking on different textures, it literally feels like there's a change in the texture. If you're walking through grass, it feels different. If you're walking on glass is different than walking on metal, then going through water, then feeling raindrops on your umbrella. All of those sensations have a different feeling, and I feel like that's largely in part due to the haptic feedback. I was talking to a couple of people, and I feel like another thing that really helps sell the DualSense is the built-in speaker. The DualShock had the built-in speaker, but I feel like it was largely ignored by a lot of developers. But for me, with the DualSense, and especially playing Astro's Playroom, the sensation that you get from the enhanced haptic feedback, combined with the adapter triggers and combined with the sense of sound, combining your sense of touch and your sense of sound really helped drive home the effect that they were trying to have. So, if you're walking through grass, hearing the grass and feeling that deeper, not just a rumble, but like a deeper level of vibration and a different level of vibration on the different surfaces, combined with the sound that is played, especially with it being so close to your face, to me, that's what really wraps the whole package up and makes it something that doesn't feel as gimmicky as it could be. Another launch title that takes good advantage of the DualSense and all the features that come with it is Black Ops Cold War. Now, I know people have mixed reviews about this game, but to me, I enjoy the game, and definitely the sensations you can get with the DualSense are unlike any other you can get anywhere else. So to actually shoot in the game, you have to pull down on the trigger with a pretty substantial amount of force, and when you do it, you actually feel recoil a little bit. So from shooting to running to throwing grenades to jumping, every single action has some sort of a dedicated sensation that you'll feel with the controller, and to me that makes it a lot more immersive. Now, for anyone who used the PS4 Pro, you know about the PS app and how bad of an app that was, at least in my opinion. And I still to this day don't know why there was a separate messaging app and why they just didn't combine that in one specific thing. But with the PS5, they have completely overhauled and redesigned the UI, and it definitely fits the aesthetic of the PS5, and it has a lot of big improvements that make it actually more user friendly. And I actually find myself wanting to open the app. Before, I used to avoid it like the plague, and maybe to open some notifications or anything like that just to clear it off my phone. But with these updates, I actually find myself just wanting to just look at the app and try some things out, try some new features. Oh, by the way, merging the Messages app into the PS app. Thank you, finally. So I really got to give it to Sony for making those improvements, and I really am excited to see what is in stock for the PS app and what they can do in the future. As for the PS5 UI, it's definitely a great improvement, and looks like it's built still on the XMB, or at least that's what they were calling it on the PS3, but it's definitely a more refined version of the PS5 UI. And finally, the PlayStation Store is now an integrated app. It's no longer a standalone app that you have to open up. It's worked straight into the UI. You just scroll over to where it says PlayStation Store, and as long as you're connected to the internet, you'll see all the content that's on there. You can download, make purchases. You can see some featured games and everything like that. So to me, that was a very big improvement, because the PS Store always felt just like this separate thing. It's like you have your PlayStation, you have your UI, and then you have the PS Store that's just like this separate but slightly connected entity. So having it built into the UI is definitely a big improvement, and I really appreciate that, and it's really enjoyable. As for gaming, like I said, 4K 120 frames per second is something I was really looking forward to with the whole next generation of gaming consoles. I have the Sony X900H, and I recently got the update for HDMI 2.1, which adds support for the 4K 120 frames per second. And if you have this TV, it's good to know that applies to HDMI ports 3 and 4. Now, by doing the update, it doesn't enable it by default. You actually have to go into the settings and watching TV and a couple of sub menus, but get to the section that's about HDMI, and you have to select enhanced format. Now, with the enhanced format, there's two versions. One, I believe, is for Dolby Digital, and there's another one that gives a description that says the 4K 120 frames per second. So make sure you don't accidentally select the wrong version of the enhanced HDMI, or on your console, you'll see that it's maxed out to be 60 frames per second instead of the 120 frames per second. Now on the PS5 side, to make sure 120 frames per second is enabled, you actually have to go into the game settings and make sure that performance mode is enabled. So to test out the 120 frames per second, I played Black Ops Cold War, and the motion looks so smooth. Everything just felt so much more immersive to me. It is important to note that this was when I was playing on bots, so I'm sure it might be a little bit different if you're actually playing online and having to deal with their servers and everything like that. But so far, 120 frames per second looks really good. Now, when I was trying to decide on a TV back in July, yeah, I've been planning for the PS5 launch for quite some time now, but I wasn't sure if I definitely needed HDMI 2.1 support in the TV, but you know, I kept thinking about it longer and longer, and my main thing is I didn't want to start off the generation, the next generation of consoles, not being able to experience everything that it has to offer. So I didn't want to be stuck with a TV that didn't support HDMI 2.1. So for me, it just made sense to get it and not have to worry about it in the future. And I'm definitely happy with the Sony TV. It has really good input lag in gaming mode, and normally in the past with other TVs I haven't really liked to use gaming mode because, you know, at least for the ones I was using, it made the picture look kind of washed out, and it does a little on this TV. You know, if you just drop it in the basic settings for gaming mode, it does look, you know, a little more gray, and there's not as much color vibrance. But on this TV, there are ways to add back some of that color and make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So in the description, I'll put some basic calibration settings that I've used in the gaming mode. By no means am I an official calibrator or anything. These are just settings that I've kind of played around with, and they look the best to me in gaming mode. Now, when it comes to anything in life, of course, there's very, very few things that have all positives and no negatives, and the PS5 is no exception. There are a couple of issues that I've had over this past week that I feel like had those issues not happened, I would have had a lot better and more enjoyable experience. So the first thing is bugs. I know when I first set up the PS5, and you know, I did most of that in my unboxing video. After I went through an initial setup, I played Astro's Playroom for a little bit, and I closed it out, you know, maybe after about 5 minutes to do something else, and I came back and wanted to test out how fast the game would load up. And you know, I selected the tile, and that was it. It essentially just froze on me. I could hear the music that you hear when you're on the live tiles in the PS5 UI, but after a while the music just stopped and it just froze on like a loading screen. And I left it there for like 15-20 minutes, and it still, you know, was just frozen. So to fix it, I actually had to uninstall the entire game and re-download it from the PlayStation Store. Luckily, the fix to that issue wasn't a lengthy process. It was pretty easy to do. But for a game that Sony has been promoting so much, especially with the DualSense, for it to have that kind of a bug where it can just make the system just hang, to me, it's just kind of crazy. You know, you think that that would have been, if anything, you know, beyond anything else, make sure Astro's Playroom works, because that's the game we're pushing to really show off what the console can do in terms of, like I said, the DualSense. So it was just kind of funny to me that that kind of a bug was present. But like I said, it was an easy fix and not anything that was too bad of an issue to deal with. Now, the next issue is the battery life of the DualSense. I can play for substantially less periods of time, especially when it's a game that, like Astro's Playroom, really uses all the features of the DualSense. Hopefully, with optimization over time, the DualSense battery life will get a little closer to what the DualShock 4's battery life is. Now, for the next con, I told you we would get back here, is the SSD. Now, with the SSD also being a pro for me in terms of the performance updates that you can have with the console because of it, the main issue I have is the storage. Now, for 2020, for the console to ship with, I believe, around 665 gigs of usable storage is kind of crazy to me. I know they have the expandable storage, but that's not going to be available until who knows when, after a firmware update and after, you know, some manufacturers come with the drive that's actually compatible with it. It's actually funny, I don't think there's even enough storage on the PS5 to install all of the launch titles, so hopefully Sony can you know, get that update pushed through eventually so you can start having more expandable storage, or at least be able to load PS5 or even store PS5 games on the external drive and transfer them back and forth. I feel like that would at least be some sort of area to meet in the middle for the time being. But yeah, storage needs to be more. So that about does it for my review of the PS5. It's definitely a promising console, and I've definitely had a lot of fun with it over the past week, but there's always room for improvement, and I'm really excited to see just how far they can push this console over the coming years. There's a ton of games that I'm really excited for, like Cyberpunk 2077, Horizon Forbidden West, Ratchet & Clank, and plenty more that are coming, so make sure you guys are subscribed if you want to see content about those games whenever they come out. I hope this video was helpful and you guys enjoyed it, and I really appreciate everyone supporting this channel. It really means a lot. So that's all for now, guys. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.